another avenue to consider for your gap year after college, in the video from last week, we talked about different ways to sort of, approach a gap year after college or during college if you're doing it, let's say during your junior year. But another thing that you could consider, in addition to, I know for my first tip last week, I talked about how, for a lot of students, they may do something that's very mission driven because they plan to use that in the future to say, like, during my time off, yes, I took time off, but during the time off, I was doing, this volunteering every single day with this charity, or I was creating something, for a charity or a mission, whatever that is. If you don't want to do something that is a mission focused and you want to do something that is very you focused, I would say that the best way to tackle that would be through either an internship or an apprenticeship, whether it is paid or unpaid. That's going to be great because, number one, that is going to give you a chance to actually, again, get some work experience. So even if you're not a paid intern out there, you still get work experience. Trust me, as someone who worked as an unpaid intern forever, it taught me more life lessons, I think, than a lot of the paid jobs that I had. And I'll be honest about that because, again, that stereotype of, you're just going to be out there fetching coffee and doing all of that, like that is really played out. Luckily, I think that a lot of startup companies really kind of wash that away in the sense of, that is usually what happens. The idea that interns are just kind of getting coffee and grabbing all that, like, that is something that is a very old school corporate, particularly corporate America way of thinking. That doesn't really happen anymore. If you are getting coffee, maybe sometimes you're just asked to get the coffee, but that doesn't mean that you're just, down in the mailroom, whatever. That is mostly in the movies. I can tell you that I interned for several different places and I was only asked to get coffee once. And that was just because the person who was going to get it had to get on a huge conference call. And so it just happened to be that way. But you actually are doing work. Like, it's been really interesting to see, like, even during the time that I was doing a lot of my interning, but I think specifically over these past like 10 years, and, there's been the debate about paid or unpaid internships. I personally am a strong advocate for unpaid internships. I feel like when you have nothing on the line, except for maybe some college credit, but maybe not, that the real person within you comes out. Anyone can work for money, but if you actually are working for free, that's when it really shows who you are. So I personally am a huge advocate for unpaid internships, but I've done a little bit of both depending on what the circumstance was. But a lot of companies now have really leaned into the fact of saying, and this has been a huge debate, I know here in the US, but I think in other countries as well, even if you are having an unpaid intern, that they need to do stuff that is of value. And so again, it's not so much anymore about people just making copies. Like, a lot of interns are, even if they're unpaid, they are unpaid, but still substantial parts of a team. And so when they come in, they have different projects that they may be working with project managers on or whatever. So you actually are going every single day to work, and you really need to basically simulate that. Like, that is what, I did throughout all of my internships. Most of them were unpaid. And I basically acted as if, I was going in there every single day as if I was the manager, not with necessarily my personal attitude, but like, every single day, showing up on time, showing up ready to do it. And it really paid off in the end for me based on where I am now. But you build those skills, again, like I said, at least for me, when you don't have anything to show for it. So it's like, it could have been easy for me to be like, well, and a lot of other people to be like, well, I'm not getting paid for this. I am, or I may not be, because depending on what school you go to, sometimes you don't even get credit for internships, which is really unfortunate. But it could have been really easy to be like, well, you know what, I'm just going to fob it off and be like, well, I'm going to show up 10 minutes late every day, and I'm going to go on lunch every hour, and I'm going to be over here in the break room and doing all this. It's like, no, like, you actually need to perform as if it is a full-time paid job. Like, that is where you actually start building your skills. And people notice that. Like, they really do notice. They understand people who are sort of stuck in their old ways of thinking of, an intern is just this or that. And people, students that have come into the situation with their mind like that of, I'm just an intern. It's like, no, you actually need to perform as if you're just a regular person working there, because a lot of internships now have really stepped it up to where they actually give people substantial things to do so that you can actually walk away showing that you've actually done, you worked on this project, you helped contribute this. So take value in that. And I know that there are a lot of organizations. There are some, I know, for example, in the US, here in places like New York, of course, LA, some in Texas. I know that particularly in Europe and in the UK, this is really popular, where a lot of organizations have what they call the schemes. And so it's not a scheme like a bad thing, it's like scheme like a working scheme. So a lot of banks will have work schemes where, you know, you can go work for Lloyd's Bank for a year or Barclays for a year. A lot of media companies have this. And so it may be called internship, it could be called apprenticeship, whatever it is, but there's a lot of opportunities out there for people who have just graduated college. And so that may be something that is very valuable to you if you feel like, well, I'm not quite ready yet to make the leap of sort of getting my first adult job, but maybe you were very busy during college. You could have been a pro athlete at the college level. You could have been someone who maybe you had to work part-time to make money, whatever it was, and you didn't get a chance to maybe fit in an internship and do that type of environment where it's like you actually got to work within an office within the type of field that you were interested in. You were busy with other things. This might actually be a good way to do it. Again, there's so many different types of opportunities out there. You may be blessed to find something locally. Maybe you're going to have to move somewhere to do it, but I would definitely say to look around for those opportunities. And the great thing about it is that they sort of factor that into, they don't call them gap year internships or whatever, but that's basically kind of what it is, because if they are offering it to people who have just graduated and it lasts for a year or 14 months, that is basically a gap year program. They don't title it that. I'm sure there's different legal reasons and all of that they don't, but I love that idea. The other part about that too that's great is that you get to sort of start building up your network, because there's going to be other people there too that are also recently, just like you, just graduated, kind of all getting your start. And so you get to kind of do it, but within a more of a safe environment where it's like, you know, you may have some elements of the project that you're working on, but it does not all rest on you. And so that is at least comforting that, you know, in your first adult job, you're not going to basically break anything. You know, it's like whatever is going to be given to you is going to be of value, hopefully, but it's not going to be sort of where it's all resting on you. The intern is not going to have to come out with their cape on and save the entire day. Hopefully you might, but you know, it is a sense where you get to get that start. And I think for people, I know a lot of people out there who, you know, were not like me, who got a chance to do, they did not get a chance to do a lot of things in college that were, you know, like intern related or whatever, that this is kind of their last chance to do that. Because again, as you move forward in your career, by the time that you are, you know, maybe 2 years, 3 years out of college, like those sort of opportunities are not available for you anymore, which is, you know, it can be a little bit disheartening, you know, like you wanted to be an intern before and you never got a chance. There are opportunities here and there, let's say like in grad school, or even if you get a little bit older, sometimes they have apprenticeships for people or internships for people, but those are a lot more rare. Most people, when they do internships, are either in high school, in college, or just out of college. And I think that taking a gap year to take on some type of internship, whether it be with a big company that everyone knows, or even a small company that is, like I was saying, a startup. Startups are really great if you are someone who's interested in technology, art, music, whatever, because again, like they're typically just more creative. Again, you get to get on the bottom level. And so you will find that with a startup, and I have not really worked at a lot of startups, but you know, kind of knowing how startups work just from other people, like, you know, you get to do so many things. And so that is really kind of useful too, because it is an internship within an internship. It's like, even if you are the owner of a startup, you can often feel like an intern. I mean, I run my own business and sometimes I forget that, you know, oh yeah, I have to do the social media. I have to do all of this stuff. Like it is a lot of work. And so I will just say that, you know, that is kind of the great part of working at a startup, even if it's just an intern, because you get to see how it works, all hands on deck. People are really trying to build something. So it's like, think about where you want to do it as well. Like not just the location wise, but what type of company would you want to intern for? Would you want to do, you know, a Fortune 500 or a FTSE 500 if you're in the UK? Or would you want to do something that is much more kind of everybody to the ground, where the person who is the CEO is also in there, you know, getting their hands dirty every day, making the copies and, you know, stuffing the envelopes and whatever. Like you need to think about like what's going to be most useful for you, and then just forge ahead with that. So if you can use a year between graduating and getting into the career field that you're interested in, getting into the real world, getting your first job, I feel like that's going to be so useful for you. And it is something that I would definitely consider. I personally, went to grad school, but for a lot of people that are not choosing that, but still want some time off, the next best option for that is going to be able to figure out if you can get a 6-month or year-long internship. So definitely go ahead and do some research on that and figure out what's out there and get started with applying so that you can get those opportunities and get started with the next path of your journey.